Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Profit Roadmap. We're your hosts, Ryan and Marlene.
Hey, everyone.
All right, this is the premier podcast created for field service pros to help you grow your business, stay on top of the latest trends, and help you provide even more value to the communities that you serve. Now, today, we're super excited to welcome Bear Duplisea, Senior Account Executive for Applause HQ. Now, in this episode, we're going to be talking about hiring trends as well as getting some insights into the service industry. Now, if you're a longtime listener, you probably recognize Bear. That's because he used to work on the Service Autopilot team, not only as a sales manager, but also as one of the original hosts for the Profit Roadmap. So yeah. I'll let him tell you a little bit more about what he's been doing since those days. But Bear, welcome back to the podcast. How you doing, man?
Welcome, Bear.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. It's like it's like coming home, but like coming home to like, you know, if someone else, like if your parents sold the house and then you walk in and there's like a whole new family. I was watching this Ben Affleck holiday film. I can't remember what it's called the other day, and it was like he apparently buys a family for the holidays, and because he goes back to the house that he grew up in, and of course the new family's moved in, and he's a rich dude now and all successful, but he doesn't have a family, so he buys that family for the holiday season, and then antics ensue. So
interesting.
But that's not going to be this experience because, I mean, you guys are awesome. So
you don't have to buy us. We'll voluntarily be your family. Yeah.
That's great. That's cool. Yeah. Antics will happen though. I'm sure.
Antics abound for sure. Absolutely.
But thanks for having me, guys.
Of course. Man, honored. So Bear, tell us a little bit about your background, how you got to where you are today, and then we'll talk a little bit about Applause after that.
Yeah, well, it's hard to believe this, but I've been a professional for almost 25 years, and that entire time I've been working with small and medium-sized business owners. Started off in insurance, and started off working for my dad, actually, who was a business owner and a salesman for 50 years, and then just stayed in the insurance world for a while, and then moved over to technology about a decade ago when I joined the Service Autopilot team, and they didn't have a sales department. I walked in the door and I was the sales department. It was pretty cool. And then saw it grow and become this huge, massive thing. And along the way, I got to know some amazing people, amazing business owners, amazing, team members too, like Marlene and stuff. And Ryan, I know you and I didn't work directly, but some great folks and everything. And it's funny. I've made very little changes in my career, professionally. But I've always kind of followed the flow of what the business owner is needed. When I left insurance, it was because business owners I was talking to were like, I can't run my business properly. I can't run it more efficiently. It's like, I'm bogged down on this. I spend countless hours doing that. And it was like, cool. And the Service Autopilot solved that issue for a lot of folks. And so I did that for a long time. But towards the end of my tenure with Service Autopilot, it just was like, all I was hearing on calls and from business owners was like, I don't know what to do about employees. I don't know how to get them. I don't know how to find them. I don't know what to do when I have them. And it like literally the same thing every conversation. And so Applause presented a very unique opportunity that I really wanted to explore. And luckily they felt the same way. And, so that's what I've been doing, is helping people with their employees and stuff. So it's been fun.
Amazing. That's amazing. Thank you, Bear, for that intro. Mm-hmm. Speaking of Applause, can you tell us a little bit about Applause and how it helps the service business?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I mean, at its core, Applause is all about employee engagement and retention. That's our mission. That's what we're trying to do and accomplish with our product. But along the way, a lot of people understand that this isn't just a cool tool or a cool little thing for your employees. The results for your company and your business by taking care of your employees really resonates and has a true long-term value to your bottom line. There's a shift in the workplace right now that we're seeing, and a lot of people call it COVID. I call it just the development of society as we've gotten into more fast food, instant reward, instantaneous result kind of driven. Think about that. We used to say, back when I was in college 20 plus years ago, we used to say it was a fast food world, right? Like even that's slow now. Fast food is slow. right? It's still not instant enough. We're used to this instantaneous result. And because of that, the carrot no longer works, right? The paycheck is just enough to get us to come to work. And when I say us, I'm talking about America's workforce or North American workforce, because that's what I'm referring to statistically. The paycheck is enough to is the driver that gets us to come into the office every day. And then, but beyond that, to do the above and beyond, to be exceptional, right? There needs to be some kind of other incentive. And then after that, there's like, okay, well, Bear, I do these quarterly parties, or I do like this, I do like a Visa gift card or something like that. Well, that's great. And but that's still a carrot that's not touchable. And so where applause comes in is we connect all these dots at the peak moment of emotionality with the customer, with your customer, and we tie it back to the employee. So in its essence, how it works very quickly is we integrate with the industry's leading CRM, Service Autopilot, of course, being one of them. After a job's complete, very simply, a simple message goes out to your customer asking them, how did that technician do that day? How did the team do that day on your property? Now, again, this is peak emotional time, because when the job is complete, the customer is either the most happy or the most ticked off they're going to be, because either the property looks fantastic or it doesn't, right? And so by tapping into that high peak emotional time, we're able to get the feedback that we want, either positive or negative, right? Now, if it's negative, great. The feedback goes directly to the company. They can react to it. They can fix the problems, issues. They prevent cancellations and churns down the road. That's great, but that's fewer and far between. The positive, though, we can take them through a series of customized flows where you can do anything from tipping your technician to leaving a review in which they'll get bonused for it. And all the while, the technician's on to their next job. But they'll get these push notifications letting them know, hey, you just got bonused for the last job you did. You just got tipped by Ryan, who thought you did a great job. Marlene left a 5-star review for you on Google. And so there's this instantaneous dopamine hit of a reward that really cultivates a culture that is more customer obsessed. You get your employees to start thinking like you as a business owner, rather than just punching a time clock. And I have a story about that too, which I can get into, but that's applause in its essence.
Yeah. You know what? Thinking as a tech here or as a field service worker, if I'm on my way to my next home and on my way there, I'm a little bit down in a funk, whatever it is. But I get a push notification that I've just received a tip or a good review.
Mm-hmm.
My mood is boosted and my dopamine goes through the roof, like you said, Bear, which pushes me to then perform better than I thought I was going to do at the next salon, at the next house, or whatever the service is. So not only, like you said, Bear, it boosts performance and it boosts how the employee feels, but also you as the business owner, if you're providing something like applause or anything, as a business owner, you reap the benefits because ultimately it makes quality go up everywhere.
It's incredible when you think about it too, because Marlene, you and I live we live in Texas, and there are field service business all over this country, but down in the South, like, it's hot. Like, I know it gets hot in the North too, but like, it gets hot. Like, and this is the kind of the story I was telling, was like, I had a guy who was mowing my lawn, every week, and I won't mention the company, but they're Service Autopilot members, and they service my property really well. And the guy who serves my property is fantastic, and I would always bring him a bottle of water. That was always my thing. And he used to tell me all the time, God, it's hot. God, it's so hot every time. And I'm like, I thought it was just chit chat at first. It's like, how about them gas prices? What's the weather like? But what I found, I finally just said to him, kind of joked back with him one day. I was like, man, I think you're in the wrong line of work. He's like, what are you talking about? I was like, all you do is complain about the heat, man. Like, I mean, I get it. It's hot, that's why I bring you the water. And he said, you know what? I've been thinking a lot about that. I really hate the heat. And I was like, well, why don't, we started getting all into his life and stuff. I was like, why don't you what, you don't think you have any other options? Like, what's up? And He's like, no, I love field. He's like, I love working in the field. I love doing this type of work. I just don't like the heat. I said, so what you're telling me is like, you probably would like a job that you're out here, just not as much. He's like, yeah. And I was like, well, what else do you do? Turns out the guy's is an irrigation tech, and he never told the employer. So, I was like, why didn't you ever tell your employer that you could do this other skill set? And anyway, long story short, he's an irrigation tech for him now.
Nice.
He loves his job now. And now he wears that company shirt with pride, with ownership, because he's in the right particular role. And that, again, applause had nothing to do with any of this. The point of the story is what I try to convey to folks is that you've got to find out your person's why or what, and and deliver on that. And in between that, instantaneous rewards delivers this like uncategorical like sense of worth. Okay, because we're not talking about life-changing money here. It's like $5 a review, $10. You can decide whatever you want. Applause is customizable, which is really great. But $5 isn't going to do too much. But you add that stuff up over time, and it's that instant thing that it hits the spot, and it works. It works. We see quality of work go up with our customers. We see retention numbers on the customer side and on the employee side improving. One of our companies saw over a 10-month period from the previous 10 months, a 26% drop in employee turnover.
Holy crap.
That's, depending on the size of the company, and this company is pretty large, that's a hefty sum of money. I mean, it was bordering on 7 figures.
Absolutely.
So, and you're like, the person who listens to this podcast is like, well, I have a small business. I might have just 5 employees. And if you turn over one of them, if you can reduce, if you turn over 20, if we reduce your turnover by 25%, that might be worth, that might be one person. That might be worth $3,000 to $10,000. That's pretty good for us, small business owner. So it's these minuscule changes that make a long-term effect that really, really benefit the company. But the instant hit is where your employees, and that's where, you got to start. The instant impact is, with the employee, and then long-term play is for the company.
Beautiful. Yeah, applause is definitely a super powerful tool. Let me ask you a question, Bear. Mm-hmm. So we talked a little bit about turnover. I want to look at the other side of that coin, which is hiring. We've seen a lot of changes in the way that service businesses are going about hiring these days. What's the biggest shift that you've noticed over the past couple of years?
People are quick to hire and quick to fire. You gotta prove your worth really quickly to an organization, because they just don't have, right now what we're seeing is that people just don't have the patience, the wherewithal, and frankly the capital to just basically hand out jobs to folks that aren't going to be a good fit for their organization. And that's a really cruel way of saying, like, it's a really cool way of looking at it. But truth be told, I mean, this podcast is about for business ownership, so let's talk about business. You got to do it, right? It's always better to fire someone who's not a fit sooner than later, because all they're going to do is just drain your bank account, and then they're also going to drain your culture. So you got to get rid of those folks. So you have to make that decision. So it's not meant to be cold or callous. That's for for our audience, here, that you got to do that. But there are these, like, what I call these fringe cases, right? Where you're just like, they're not a fit, but it's because of certain behavioral issues, or it's certain becomes of things, again, where we just haven't tapped into that person's why or whatever. And that's where, what I was talking about applause. But I think where the hiring, to your question, Ryan, why people are going for more experience, they're investing deeper, meaning they're opening up their wallets a lot more. They're having to pay more for experience. And, but this leads to 2 problems. One, the ultimate complaint of, I can't find anybody to hire because they need more experience. And the second problem is it's their hiring cycles are longer, because again, they can't find anybody. They're looking for more experience. So, if you're an employee listening to, or a potential employee listening to this podcast, what I would tell you is go out get certified or get a license in, in something in field, in the, field services, whether that's, an electrical apprenticeship on the HVAC side or on the field service side. Go get your fertilization, certification, something like that. Make yourself more hireable. You might still come in and work at the bottom, of the rung, but with that license, you can move up quickly and stuff like that once you've proved your worth pretty quickly. So
that's good. I know you said to kind of make yourself hireable.
Mhm.
What about those prospects who are still in high school, right? With our previous guests, we talked about field service workers usually are very young and they start out very young. Maybe they don't have the means to make themselves hireable. And we talked about business owners having a more of an open mind with hiring people in high school who are just starting out. So what would you say to our listeners who maybe don't have the means to make themselves hireable with getting certifications or anything like that? What else could they do to, I don't want to say prove themselves, but to let the small business owner know, like, hey, invest in me, hire me and train me. What else could they do other than get certified somewhere?
Be coachable and learn. I think that's the sign of any good employee. If you're an employee looking for employment, listening, then the sign of any good employee is just to be coachable and show yourself as such and prove it. Like, it's not just about talking about something; it's also about doing it. And if you don't do it, that's going to be the problem. But to your previous guest point, and to any business owner that I am talking to in a private conversation, I would tell them to absolutely invest in younger and more inexperienced, because technically they are going to be more coachable. They're more of a blank canvas. If you invest in somebody and invest in somebody wisely, the right person, look at more of the intangibles. Look at like their behaviors. Like, this particular person may not have had the highest GPA, but they had a perfect attendance record. You want someone who shows up every day, right? Ask the often questions. I find it very interesting. When I look at my resume and I look at it a snapshot, I'm like, this doesn't really tell my story. And I think as business owners and business in general, when we look at resumes and stuff, we look at things that, we look at things the same way that we did 50 years ago. None of us were around then. Not even me. I'm old and I still wasn't around. But like 50 years ago, people looked at, what was your education? What was your GPA? Things like that. Look, we're talking about field services, like simple things. Like, do you show up every day? If you have a C and B student, a BC student who wants a job for you and showed up to class every day and put in an effort, that's the person you want. That's the person you want working for you, because they show that they put in effort. They show that they put in effort, and they show up every day. And the occasional A, like in PE and other stuff, too, that's great. That means they don't take the easy stuff for granted.
Yeah.
Very true.
I mean, the person who gets a B in PE, come on. Look, I was never the fastest kid in PE class, but even I got an A in PE. Come on.
Yeah, it wasn't hard. Yeah, I wasn't the most athletically inclined back in my high school days either, but
Great points.
So let's talk about retention. So one of the big complaints that we get from our listeners is that they struggle to keep their best employees. We talked a little bit previously about how the carrot isn't quite as motivating as it used to be. What are some of the strategies that you've seen companies use to up that retention?
Well, I mean, we're seeing a lot of it. So most of the conversations I have on a daily basis, they're doing some kind of incentive program for reviews, right? They're doing other incentives, like, they're doing lunches or parties or contests and things like that to try to motivate it. The problem inherently with that too is that to manage it properly and to keep it consistent, right? So consistency is key. Like, if you're trying to build a culture, you don't like just say, hey, in the year 2024 we had like 4 parties, 10 contests, etc. Right? In the year 2025, you got to do the same thing. It's not always about bigger and better, but you got to do the same thing. You got to do some things differently, but you got to do the same thing, right? Because if you lower it, then people are going to be like, oh, we only had 3 parties this year and all this other stuff. Like, so like you got to keep it as consistent as possible. Now you can change it up so that, that you keep them engaged. That's the whole point.
Mhm.
Right. But you got to keep some kind of consistency. That also being said, where it creates an issue just labor wise is you've got to manage that, right? You have to have someone that manages it. So if you're doing contests, who's tracking the numbers? Who's organizing the party? What kind of party you have? What is like all this other, so it inadvertently creates all this additional work to engage your employees, right? And so, again, selfless plug here, but this is where Applause really, really takes a lot of that stuff off the plate. Again, we integrate with the industry's leading CRMs. So everything is automated. We instantly reward your employees for the job that they do. And it takes all that additional effort out of it, and it's all instant. It's that instant gratification. Just go back to it. So, but you can still do these other things, and utilizing something like Applause, you can do what we call spot bonusing, which is like, hey, Ryan had perfect attendance this month. Well, Applause doesn't track your attendance, but you might track it, elsewhere in Service Autopilot or something else, or Field Edge or whatever. And then you can just give them a spot bonus at the end of the month or whatever. And it's, again, instant delivery, everything like that. They get a great message and stuff. And we actually have a celebrations channel too in the software. So people on their apps or even on the administrative side that says like shouts out all the positive stuff. So you get to see all the cool stuff as well too.
Yeah. I like that a lot. It's having a channel for that positivity, I think, is something that is powerful. Mm-hmm. When you're sort of like in the trenches every day, it's very easy to get caught up in the negative. So having a place you can go to see the cool stuff, I like that a lot.
I think just being loud about things, being loud about it, like, really, really celebrate this stuff. Like, I have kids, when they do something negative, it's like, you feel like you're just always like correcting them and stuff like that. So like when they do something really good, I'm super loud about it. I'm like, I scream out loud. I'm so excited that they did something great because I want to celebrate it, and I want them to hear that kind of joy and stuff like that. People are no different. I mean, they might be more mature and stuff like that. Well, although my 9-year-old's pretty mature though. But people like that gratification. People like being told that they do a good job, and it's just one of those things that kind of recognition. I've been noticing a cool trend. Like Katie Landscape does this on LinkedIn. They're not a client of Applause's, but they're really cool. They're a pretty large landscape company, and they do employee shout outs on LinkedIn. They'll like feature an employee, their bio, their story, why they're great at their job, and why they're really excited to have them there. That's super cool. Like,
it is super cool.
Doesn't cost you anything. I mean, and man, that's something that employee can go home and show their family. Show their kids, hey, what does dad or mom do all day? Here's what I do.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's important not to overlook the rewards that are not tied to money. So while tips are great and the party and the prizes and the bonuses, that's all great. And we all know that. But those little rewards and shout outs, if you will, to your employees, those mean a lot too, because imagine if they had a crappy day out in the field or in the office or wherever, you don't know that they had a bad day, right? So you're not going to give them a bonus that day, but then they happen to check into LinkedIn and see their profile featured, or within Applause, they see the notification that they're being recognized for something that automatically is going to boost their mood. And then they're not going to go into the office the next day being a Debbie Downer, bringing your culture down. So I would say definitely don't overlook, I should say, the non-monetary rewards that come with keeping your culture alive.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think there's a lot of things to be said about simple stuff, right? Just simple rewards, simple recognition, just like pats on the back and things like that. But again, the where you're really going to transcend your business with employee retention is, whether that be through a solution like Applause or something else, is finding that connection that with your employees that allows them to take ownership in the business too, where they don't feel like they're coming to work, but they're coming to their business just as much as it is yours.
Yeah, very important part there. So when we talk about hiring, sort of on the heels of that, almost every conversation we have about hiring, culture is a big thing. We've already seen it throughout this episode. Whenever hiring comes up, we have to talk about culture. So let's talk about culture a little bit. So I'm curious about, from your perspective, Bear, how you see culture as part of the hiring process. So like when you're posting at job ads or something like that, like how do you showcase your culture in a way that really gets across who you are as a business to potential prospects?
I think kind of just on the heels of what we were just talking about, talk about everything but the job. When you come to work, you're coming to family. When you come to work, you're coming to, you know, a place where you're welcome, you're heard, you truly are a part of a team aspect, right? Making things fun, gamifying stuff, right? It's not just about how many jobs did you get done today? It's like, hey, did you see that Ryan, finished up 15 jobs today? That's a career high for him. Or that's a company high, right? That kind of stuff, competitions really, really raise the bar of the employee base, and when you're advertising for jobs and stuff, again, it's talking about everything but the job. I mean, this, the work that, field services, it's pretty straightforward. It's the same type of work, right? And if you've done it before, you've done it before and you know what it's about. You don't need a job description. If you're looking for a fertilization and weed control technician, you don't need for the people who don't know what that is, that they're not your candidate, and the people that do know exactly what to do, right? So it's not, these kinds of jobs in field services don't require a job description, really. I mean, you could put something on for posterity, but to make yourself more attractive and stick out, and you got to also walk the walk too, and advertise, I would say, everything but the job itself.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because you may not be able to afford them, right? Like we want to hire A+ players. Sorry, Marlene, I didn't mean to interrupt. But we want to hire A+ players. So like, you may not be able to afford that, right? So it's these intangibles, things that you can offer. They're like, hey, listen, no, I can't pay you $25 an hour. I can pay you $22, but here's what I will give you. Here's what you get by coming to work here, right? And if you can show them the culture, the rewards that they'll get on a more instant basis or a more regular basis, that instantly makes you more attractive to the people that want to work. Work-life balance is huge too. Even in field services, people still want to go home and spend time with their kids. Like, that's not reserved for, the lucky folks like us who get to spend our days in offices, or at home, working from home, that kind of stuff. So work-life balance is important.
Absolutely.
Can you talk to us about ways that applause can help field services businesses hire and retain it? So I know we've talked about the rewards and the tipping that applause can do with integrations and other CRMs out there. But what about the hiring process? How can applause really help hire and retain employees?
Thanks for that leading question, Marlene. So yeah, that's something I was going to say with the last one, but I just didn't want to be too much of a selfless plug there. But like it,
that's why you're here. It's okay.
Yeah, man.
But it's, again, it kind of goes back to that conversation. No, I cannot offer you $25 an hour. I can offer you 22. But check out this. And you flip open your applause app and you say, look, Ryan and Marlene, who are our top 2 performers last month, made this much in bonuses for all the reviews they got, right? Because we're not just tips. Like, applause isn't just tips. Because let's wait, like, there's a lot of business owners that might have already turned this podcast off when they heard tipping. Because like, tipping is a very polarizing topic. But we offer bonuses for reviews, for bonuses for NPS. Like, there's a lot of things that you can automate through applause that will bonus your technicians for the job that they're doing, and high customer satisfaction. Because there's value there, right? There's value in making customers happy. But that's where you can show the employee or the prospective employee is like, listen, I really want to hire you. I can't afford the $25 an hour, but I can give you the 22, and I can show you that, Ryan and Marlene earned, a couple $100 last month. That's more than going to make up for that difference in cost. We'd love to have you here as part of our team. And ultimately, it's also it's like anything else in business too, right? You got to be able to walk away, right? Like if you feel really good about your culture and everything like that, and you've put everything out there for the prospective employee and they don't want to work for you, they'd rather go make $1 or more at ABC Lawn Care or whatever. Sorry for all the ABC Lawn Cares out there. Sorry about that, guys.
There are enough of them. Yeah.
There's enough of them, right? So
we can guarantee at least one listens.
Yeah, if they want to go make an extra $1, at the lawn care company down the street or something like that, doing the same work, then let them. Again, that might not be the best person for your team too. If they can't see it, if they can't see what your culture offers.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. Very, very good point. Let's shift gears a little bit. So beyond hiring, are you seeing any specific trends going on in the landscaping industry?
Yeah, I think more so companies are starting to make really gigantic shifts in their businesses, and that can be any number of things. Companies are more so than ever, particularly up north of the Mason-Dixon line or whatever in the United States. You're seeing more companies look at other services that they can offer year round. People are getting away from successful businesses that have been around for a long time, are getting away from low margin work and either subbing it out, hiring it out, and finding additional work that they're going to. So successful, residential lawn care businesses, lawn mowing businesses are shifting towards, more fertilization, weed control, or simple softscaping and things like that, because the margins are better. I've talked to so many businesses and so many business owners and over the years and stuff, and mowing is the headache that everybody puts up with because you can always find work and you can always sell it. The problem is you have to sell a lot of it, and you have to keep up a pace in order to make the minuscule margin that you do, because Ryan down the street can offer the service for 50 cents less. So you're competing for the you're competing for the bottom rather than from competing for the top. So the successful businesses are really diversifying their portfolio, starting to sub out some of that lower margin work, starting to find the niches within their business and really kind of expanding so that they can offer more year-round work. Because also too, there's some successful businesses that are already at that level that can fire and hire, every season with relatively good success because they've been doing it for a long time. If you're 10 years or younger in this business and you play that game, you're not getting those same good people back. You're just not, because you don't have the long-standing reputation to do it. So you're not getting those seasonal workers back at the clip that you were 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago when you first started.
You bring up a really good point, Bear, with a lot of businesses who listen to this podcast being seasonal businesses. So speaking of retention, what's a good way of getting that retention with employees who leave and come back? So what can you do? What can a business owner do, if anything at all, to kind of get a promise or a handshake from an employee that they will return next season?
Just applause. I'm just kidding. No, I think where you're going to find that kind of handshake agreement, so to speak, is what are you offering? And I'm seeing a lot of business owners that are doing this, that are forced to do this, right? Is they're paying basically for nothing, right? They're laying their employees off for a certain amount of time, and then there's some intermittent bonusing or something like that in between, just to kind of lure them back, and that's still not bringing everybody back. So that's why I'm saying that, the offer of guaranteed employment doesn't do anything, because more than likely they're going to have to find some work between now and then.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to make it really incentive, like a guaranteed pay increase, a guaranteed spot, and a guaranteed pay increase. And you're like, people that are listening, Bear, I can't afford that. It's like, okay, well then you're going to go shopping for a new employee.
Which is also expensive, right? To rehire and go through the full rehiring process of a brand new person is also pricey.
So I was talking to someone today, like literally this morning, I was talking to someone today. They're like, yeah, Bear, we, like it's, our retention, our retention this year was actually pretty good. It was about 30%. It's like, you had 30% turnover. And he's like, yeah, usually it's around 60 or 70. You know how it is. Like that's okay. And I'm like, and listen,
who's gonna tell them?
Well, listen, I mean, no disrespect to them at all, but that's their normal. And there's probably people listening to this. They're like, yeah, that's about right. Yeah. What's Bear talking about? That's not crazy. Come on. You have to want something better than that. Just because something is the way it's done doesn't mean it's the way you have to do it. And that's something that I try to talk to business owners about all the time, is the way it's done isn't always the way is the way you should do it. There's so many things that we do in life that are, hey, that's just the way it's done.
Or just because it works for you and your business doesn't mean it's going to work for me and my business.
That would be great, even if it did work, Marlon. That's the problem, is they'll do stuff that doesn't work, but it's the way it's done. Take for example a metric that a lot of business owners just look at and kind of sneeze at and say oh, that's just the cost of doing business, and that's reservices, right, or revisits, right? Going back out to a property because the customer complained. Something was missed, a mistake was made. That's, business owners I talk to all the time chalk that up as to the cost of doing business. Good business owners understand that's a huge gap. That's a huge, because it's an area you can easily solve. And when you do, it makes all the difference in the world, because when you go back out, you're not making anything. That is all red. Sending a truck back out there, the gas spending out, that's all red. Paying the employee overtime, all red. The wear on tear in your equipment, all red. That's all red. Mm-hmm. So if you can say, I did one less revisit this year, that's all black. So when you something like a tool like Applause, we've seen this with some of our customers, is that they're anecdotally, their revisit rate decreases. Why? Because again, their technicians are now taking the time to explain to customers, right? And we're seeing a huge move in the industry where it's still P2P. They're still being efficient. They want to get to the next job because that's how they get paid, right? And so they're still being efficient, but the quality of time with the quantity of time that they're spending on a property is better invested. They're like, I better explain this to this customer because I don't want them to complain. I don't want them to come back out here, right? Explain why I was here for 15 minutes only. Here's what I did in the 15 minutes that I was here, right? That's what we're kind of seeing anecdotally and metrically at Applause, is reservice rates are decreasing. And again, might be business owners that are talking about hey, my retention's good. I keep all my customers. I keep all my guys. My reservice rate is below 3%. Cool. If you can move that needle just a little bit and you add those needle marks up, that's going to be all black on your revenue line.
Very good.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you mentioned something there that brought up, I think, a pretty good point in the way that Applause goes about rewarding the employees, and that if you have a business and your pay model is pay for performance, the razor that everyone's walking there is, how do I get my guys to go fast, but not too fast? Because you don't want to go so fast that quality is just out the window, and they're crunching for that. I think Applause would be a pretty good solution to that. I want to go through, I want to get more because that's how I get the bulk of my money. But I also want to make sure that I'm doing a quality job every single time I'm out here, because that's going to pay me dividends over time as well.
1,000%. Yeah. That's what we really see. It's funny you mentioned that, Ryan, because I was at a considerable amount of trade shows this year, and that's what I heard a lot was pay for performance. They're like, oh, I already pay my guys for performance. Why would I pay them more? Essentially. And it's like, you just nailed it on the head. It's like, okay, again, go back to one of my original comments too. The getting the person to work every day, just have them show up and do a job. Not great, not terrible, just the job. That's their paycheck. That's what you're paying them for. It's an unfortunate way of looking at it. It really is. Like I lost my father earlier this year, and I don't know if he was still a business owner today. I don't know if he could. I just don't know if he could handle it. I just don't know if he could handle it because he prided himself on a job well done, and he expected the people that, he never expected more out of his employees than he was willing to give. Never. He never expected more than what he was willing to give. The problem is like I just don't know if they're even willing to give what he was willing to give, or even half of what he was willing to give. Because my dad, had an enormous heart, and he had an enormous service-minded mentality, and it would be a struggle for him. It really would be. So if you're wanting to run a business in today's age, you gotta ebb and flow to that.
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing about your dad with us, Bear. I know how important he was in your life. And sorry about his passing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, he was a great man.
I know it. Well, you're his son, so of course I can imagine what critical man he was.
You're too kind.
I do want to talk about, though, something that business owners deal with a lot is the frustration of having employees who don't take the job as seriously as they do. And if you're listening and you're an employee, you might be thinking, well, why would I? I get paid X amount. Yep. This is part-time. Yep. I do this while I go to school, or I do this as a second job. Why would I take it seriously? And listen, that could be its own podcast, but any words of wisdom to business owners who are going through that frustration where their expectations are way through the roof because they're the owners and they want their employees to match that?
Well, don't lower your expectation. I mean, that should be delivered from day one. But you can't expect them to take ownership in something that you don't give them ownership in. So, that being said, we were just talking about this a second ago, a paycheck's not going to do it. You're paying them to do a job. You're paying them to show up and do it. That's what a paycheck is. And we can argue the semantics of it and go back to, like I said, to my dad and the mentality that he expected out of his employees, and his employees gave him. But to my dad's credit and to really good business owners' credit, what I will tell you is that they will give their employees ownership in the business. And I'm not talking about like a literal ownership percentage. You can have that conversation and you can certainly do that. There are employee-owned businesses out there, and that's a fantastic, virtuous venture. And if you're into that, cool. If you're not, then that's, if you want to continue to own it, but you have to give them ownership in it. Why should I, to your point, why should I care about this company? Well, giving them a reason to. And it's more than just a paycheck. Give them a home away from home. Make them feel heard. They have a complaint, listen to them. Doesn't mean you have to do what they say. Doesn't mean you have to give into it. Explain to them why you're not going to, why their complaint has no grounds. Don't just say, well, we're not going to do that because I'm the boss. Right?
That never feels good.
Yeah.
As an employee. That one.
That doesn't work with kids, by the way, either. I'll just say that right now.
It doesn't scare them.
Hey, go do this. Why? Because I said so. Yeah. Tell me the last time that worked on a kid.
Well, that's not fair.
Yeah. 1956. That was the last time that worked on a kid.
Yeah.
All right. So, give them a reason to. Give them a reason to take ownership in the business, right? And that can be a reward system like applause offers. That can be these things that we've been talking about, incentives and other items. But just make them feel welcome. Make them feel like they're owners. Ask their opinion. Hey, I want to do this. What do you think? I'm not saying I'm going to listen to you, but what do you think? Give me some points, right? Right. The people that are most successful in business. I got this quote from a TV show years ago, and it's something that my dad actually followed it without actually following it, and I've seen in the most successful business owners. Okay. People like Jonathan Potoshnik really kind of resemble this remark. It's, listen, if you're dumb, surround yourself with smart people. And if you're smart, surround yourself with smart people who disagree with you. And the reason that works, if you're dumb, if you surround yourself with smart people, you're going to do smart things. And if you're smart and you surround yourself with smart people who agree with you, they're going to talk you out of the times that you're wrong, because you might be smart, but you're not always wrong, because nobody's perfect.
I love that. I'd write that one down.
Yeah, it's great. It's from Sports Night. It's an old TV show. It lasted like 2 seasons, but it's a freaking gem, man.
That's similar to a similar quote, or just the idea that if you hang out with 5 smokers, you become the 6th smoker. If you hang out with 5 people who go jogging in the morning, you're going to become the 6th. So essentially, whoever you surround yourself with is what you become, which I think says a lot about. I think a good example or a good visual I like to have is your surroundings matter. So imagine a bowl of fruit, and you have a healthy apple and then a bunch of unhealthy apples. The healthy apple, just by being in that same environment, by default, it's going to get rotten quicker than it would if you were in a healthier environment.
Yeah, exactly.
Same goes for culture and businesses.
Well, that's why mastermind groups are so popular these days. Like if you think about it, like the ownership groups are really popular. I'd get into those too. If you're not a part of a community of business owners, get in one. Get in one round. Get in 2. Get in 3. Like, surround yourself with people, because again, if you're going home to your family, that's great. But if you're going to social meeting groups and you're talking to other guys who punch a time clock for their job, that might be great for they might be longtime friends, and that might be great for you personally, and that's fantastic. But from a professional perspective, it's going to do nothing for your business. And talking to them about work is going to have absolutely no positive effect. If you're hanging out with 5 buddies from college or 5 buddies from high school and none of them own a business, none of them will influence your business positively.
Agreed.
Yeah, they're taking shots in the dark at best.
Yeah. Or at least you can't go to them for advice necessarily. They might be smart people. Mm-hmm. They might be able to offer some pretty cool perspectives and stuff like that, but they're not in the same boat that you're in.
Absolutely. I'll take a moment there to plug Field Services Academy. It's another product that we offer here at Explore.
Great stuff. Yeah.
There's paid options. There's free options. Talk to your CSM about it. We'll get you in there one way or the other. So
some great material in there. Like the Field Service Academy is fantastic. I mean, there's some stuff that's like, over a decade old in there that is still so relevant today. And it's shocking.
Still gems.
And it's shocking how many business owners don't know some of this stuff. Like it's just,
I was talking to Jonathan about it before he exited, and it was like, it feels like we kind of do the same talk every, year, every 2 years. And it's because people always have that question. So absolutely. Yeah. When you go in there and you take a look at some of those videos, they're 4+ years old. Don't just discount them. Those things are diamonds, man.
Yeah.
Evergreen. It's evergreen advice.
1,000%.
Bear, any final thoughts or words or piece of advice, anything that you'd want to tell our listeners, whether it's about rewarding, retention, hiring, or like you mentioned earlier in this call, you have 20 years of experience previously with SA, so you know the pain points of a lot of field services. Anything you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, thanks. I was talking about my dad earlier. When I first started in sales, I was like, my dad had been doing it for 40 years at that point. I was just like, hey, give me that gem, give me that advice. You've got a lifetime of this. I'm just starting. I'm just a kid. Tell me what to do. And he gave me 2 solid pieces of advice. I think they're 2 of the best quotes I've ever gotten out of him. My dad was like full of these mantras and maxims. It was crazy. Like he always had the perfect saying at the perfect moment of time, every time. Growing up into young adulthood, he had the perfect gem just waiting for you. Some of it was made up. Some of it was stolen. Some of it was a movie. Like it didn't fucking matter. He just had that perfect thing just waiting for you. And it was just when you're a kid, it's sickeningly annoying, and when you're an adult, it's unbelievably needed.
Like, don't you wish you had them all in a book now?
I have all of them. I have a lot of them written down. I have a lot of them. So like
That's awesome.
like I said, when he passed away, I delivered a eulogy, and that's how I separated sections of his life, was by some of the quotes that he left.
That's beautiful,
behind.
Man.
So yeah, and it was really cool to hear, like to have people who'd known him for a lifetime, like, yeah, that was a Bernie quote. That's what he used to say. Like, it's just like, and some of them make absolutely no sense. Like, to this day, I still don't know what dollars to donuts means. Like, he used to say that. Oh, I'll bet you, I bet you dollars to donuts. This, like, Dad, what the? I mean, you can contextually, you can figure it out. It's like, okay, yeah, it's a certainty. Okay, great, cool. Like, where did that come from? Like, whatever. But when I started business, and I started in sales, he said, son, sales is easy. It's super easy, because you can be part of the solution or you can be part of the problem. Just don't ever be part of the problem. Just don't ever be part of the problem. And that works in business too. If you're a business owner, don't ever be part of the problem. Don't be the problem. Be part of the solution. And that's for every employee out there listening too. If you want to make yourself really attractive to employers, or if you want to make yourself attractive for, promotion and things like that, don't ever be part of the problem. Just be part of the solution.
Which will require
Bear, that's easier than said.
A mentality switch, right?
Yeah, just figure it out. Figure out what needs to be right. If you're saying, well, Bear, I don't know what the solution is, then you're part of the problem. I know that sounds cold, but you're part of the problem. If you don't know what the solution is, or if you're not working towards the solution, then you're part of the problem. It's that easy. And the other one that he left me too with, and this, I swear to God, this will be something that everyone should take with them, because I think it might be my father's greatest quote. And it's simple. He's like, and I know I swore it earlier. Can I swear? Because
yes.
Yeah,
if it means that the most genuine stuff will come out, go for it.
Okay. All right. So this is the other piece of advice he gave me when I started. I was just like, son, people don't give a shit how much you know. People don't give a shit how much you know until they know how much you care. So just care.
Don't fake it either.
What's that?
I said it's important to care, but don't fake it either, right? Because then you're just BSing relationship.
Everyone can tell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right? They'll sniff that out. Yeah. So quick.
I'll tell you, I worked in an office once. And I had a colleague that was a manager of another department, and it was uncanny. It was like a switch that could flip on and off. And this person's a fantastic person, but they had a certain managerial style that was very aggressive when they were talking about work, and they could be demeaning and demoralizing and a lot of negative, right? But suddenly they wanted to flip the switch back on and be the person that was great, the genuine person that was an actual cool person. Like, yeah, like this person's super cool and they're great, and they like, I want to hang out with them on the weekend kind of thing. But you can only play that game for so long before people people sniff it out, and they tone out that the genuine person that you might be, because you're, a jerk at work, So, yeah, just care, just care. That's it.
Beautiful, Bear. I love that.
Thank you.
I got those written down. Absolutely. Bear, if people want to learn more about you or about Applause, where can they find you guys?
ApplauseHQ.com. The company is called Applause. We just needed the website, so it's ApplauseHQ.com. So, yeah, you can check us out at ApplauseHQ.com. I'm available at Barrett@ApplauseHQ.com if you want to shoot me an email. And you can get connected with me there too. But we've got a great team of folks that we're growing, we're building, we're making Applause better than ever. In 2025, we're shooting for some really fantastic goals. So I'm really looking forward to it. That being said, also, if anyone's out there is into premium cigars, shameless plug, I host a premium cigar podcast every Sunday. And you can find me on, anywhere you listen to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean. Hashtag LO Fumar Takes. I know it's in the show notes, so you can just hit that up. We have a lot of fun. I have a lot of good conversations. If you don't like cigars, you probably might still get something out of the interviews because we don't really talk that much about cigars. I just talk to people about who they are as a person. It's kind of my shtick. So, but guys, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Bear.
Loved it. Loved coming home. It was good.
Yeah, man. Super good to see. And you didn't even have to pay for the family. It's just, we're here.
Oh, I need to find the name of that movie. Like, it's it was when Ben Affleck was just like, I'm just taking the paycheck period of his career. It was like, I forgot. I really don't know the name of the movie.
As a little bonus, we'll see if it's in the show notes.
Yeah. looking it up right now. Totally am.
Yeah.
So
beautiful. All right, Bear. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Bear. It was good having you.
Thanks,
All right, later, guys.